Well, hello, gorgeous. I am so excited to be here with you. And as always, thank you for your energy, your time, for your loving up on this podcast. And if you are so inspired, please feel free to share this episode with three other people so they can absorb this information and find the inspiration and empowerment that they're looking for. And of course, the link will be in the podcast episode on the show notes. And if you're watching on YouTube, it will be there as well. I am so grateful to be here with you. This topic today is really near and dear to my heart. It is one that I've wanted to have this conversation with me and you for a long time. It took a little bit of courage, I'll be honest. And if you've been listening, core, the French word, I'm not saying it so well. Core in French is heart. And so I always think when you think of courage, really tuning into the heart, being of the heart, to speak from the heart. And so this conversation today with you and me, with yours truly, is all about tapping in, how to tap into the power of your spirituality, why this term woo woo, I actually think can be a negative, and often it can debunk a sense of reality to spiritual connection. And I'm not condoning if or I'm not judging if you use the word woo woo. Sometimes I use it and realized I want to talk about that. I want to talk about, what does this really mean to connect to spirituality, to your spirituality? What does it have to do with being your Youest You? And just all things around really owning my spiritual connection, and for you to own yours in whatever way that works. So I'm just going to say, please listen with an open heart, with an open mind, and take what you love and discard the rest. If something I'm saying doesn't speak to you, that is totally fine. You do not have to take this all as the truth. I just am sharing from my heart some of the things that I have found to really shift my life, my connection to something way greater. And I'm going to be using a lot of different terms. For me, I'll just kind of level set here. When I think of connecting to the universe, to God force, sometimes I use the term beloved. Sometimes I use the term creator or infinite intelligence or all loving light. All of these signify to me, and just for you to know, something that is the essence and creation and creator of everything in our universe, everything in the cosmos, that I believe we are all connected to. No matter where you were born, what race, what gender, what nationality, what language you speak, what country you live in, you and I truly in my heart think of you as a sister or a brother or sister brother. And I truly feel that there is a inherent divinity and connection that is within each of us. And so those are some of the terms I'll be using. Of course, substitute what works for you. And my intention is for you to come away today, all of what I am really standing for and why I do this podcast, this show, and bring on guests and talk about these subjects. It's all about tapping into your most authentic, beautiful, pure, aligned self. I think of that as your higher self, my higher self. Your Youest You is that part of you that is always here guiding you, can be the overseer of your past, present, and future. There is a huge spiritual component for me with this term. And I'm going to talk about ways that I tap into my higher self, my meest me, and what I do to do that, what's helped me, and what hopefully can help you. So I'm really honored, really grateful to be in your earbuds, to be part of your life, to be on your journey. And I want to thank you. I've been getting messages from you from all over the world. And, I see us as being on this beautiful path together. We're on this mission together, to really help as many of our sisters and brothers to come home to ourselves, to unlock the often what feels like a closed door to our hearts, to unlock your own heart, to unlock your dreams, to unlock what the potentiality that's within you. I think of that beautiful idea of an acorn and an oak tree, and I see each of us as that acorn. And I would hate to think that I didn't do some part in this world to help you and to help myself to really nourish and nurture and water your acorn, to be the oak tree, whatever that looks like, whatever that means, however that self expresses. So today, we are diving into all things spiritual connection, spirituality, and I just appreciate you being on the journey and the ride with me. And as always, love your feedback, love to hear what resonated, what really might have touched you, what inspired you, where did you feel like maybe there's a new insight for you. That is always my intention. So, what I'm going to do, I don't typically do this, but my intuitive wisdom is saying I'm actually going to pull a card before I start sharing with you some of my thoughts. I've been thinking about this a lot. And I have a really wonderful deck of cards called the Youest You intention cards. There are 33. Three is a powerful number. And of course, when you have that double number, 3, like 11, 22, 33, it signifies strength and power. So 3 is like the building blocks of the universe. So there are 33 of these cards. I am shuffling them as I am speaking to you. And I'm just going to ask my higher self, my Youest me, the guides, and I do for me, I'll just get out right out of the gate. I tune in daily, often, to what I feel are, souls, light beings, non-physical intelligence. I got into this with my interview with Laura Lynn Jackson, a very well-known psychic medium who connects with souls and light beings on the other side. And I like to ask for my team of light, of the highest realm of frequency and love and goodness, to come through me. And we are going to talk a little bit about channeling too. I'm going to share my perspective on it, but I'm just going to ask to be connected and linked into that beautiful, beautiful team of light, and ask that they work with me right now to pick a card that is going to be for your highest good and that will help to get this conversation going. So this is the card I'm choosing. I just shuffled them. It is the one on top. It's the one that feels most kind of lit up, is the way I would say it. So, oh my God. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm laughing. This is so fun. This is why when you start to practice, and for those who heard the interview I did with Sonia Choquette, if you remember, intuition means inner teacher. We want to flex and build our muscles to really trust our intuition. That is actually a huge reason why I do practices every day. This is what I use in my coaching, what I teach in my coaching is how to trust your intuition. So guess what the word I chose? Guess what the word is, my friend? After just talking about this, you can't make this up. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I did not know this card. I chose courage. Of course. Ko is heart and courage is, of course, of the heart. So it's a very short intention. I am full of courage and I have the ability to step into my most powerful life. That's so beautiful. That's for all of us. And then this is the 2 questions to ask your Youest You. Every card has an intention and then has questions to ask your Youest You. Where have I shown and used courage before? Where would I like to have more courage? All right, so I love that already there is some divine alignment. I'm feeling like tingly and excited, and my heart just opened, because that is what I just started out with, right? Is for me, it did take some courage to have this conversation with you and to talk about this. And what I want to say is that, in terms of the term spirituality, one way I would invite you to consider it, because what I'm not talking about is religion, right? So I know that we span, my beautiful Youest You listeners all over the globe span all different religions. I mean, all different religions I know, because you've written in and shared with me. So all of these different religions and backgrounds and faiths. So whether you are Muslim or Jewish or Christian or Buddhist or Hindu or pagan or into Wicca or whatever, or nothing, I mean, whatever you are, something in between. First of all, you're welcome. You're here. I hope you feel like you have a space at the table here in this community. What I'm talking about is something that transcends religion. To me, spirituality is really the golden thread that links you and I wherever we are. It links you and I, it links us with the animals, the plants, with all of Earth, with all of the universe, with all of the cosmos. And that golden thread, the building blocks, so to speak, which I talked about, the number three, really is energy. And that energy comes from that infinite intelligence, that source energy. So to me, spirituality is being in the awareness of that, shifting my eyes, my perspective, my body, my awareness, my remembrance, my entire being, so that I can remember and connect to the consciousness of the divine mind, the universe. And I told you I'd use a lot of different words, to the God force. And I believe, personally speaking, that God force, that creator, is the creator of every single thing, all of it, every single thing. There's nothing that is not part of that. There is so much more that I could get into. Some of the inspiring works that I've been reading and working through and studying, personally speaking, a bit through Course in Miracles, which I've had some amazing guests here talk about that. Big fan of Ernest Holmes' work, The Science of Mind. Louise Hay, Reverend Michael Beckwith with Agape are very connected to the New Thought movement, which is really just about that new thought, that between our ears and when we connect in 18 inches from our mind to our heart, when we connect into the fact that our word is powerful, that the universe is listening and responding to your words, not just outward but inward, to your energy, your your vibration, your frequency. Literally, think about tuning to a radio station, right? If you want to tune into that greater universal intelligence, we've got to get ourselves into that frequency. That frequency, I believe, is goodness, God, love, peace, harmony. And so for me, every day, my goal is to spend the morning, the first thing I do when I wake up, and I'll share a little bit what I do, and the evening is to tune into that frequency. Not perfectly, but as best as I can. The other works that have been so helpful, so many that I won't be able to list them all here. Big fan of Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks, who channels this beautiful, powerful energy. These, what is thought of as like the infinite intelligence that comes together as one unison voice of that connection to source energy, to our higher self. And I do believe all of us, you and I, have a higher self, have an aspect of you that is not connected to the realms of time, that is in the past, the present, and the future, and that is always, always guiding you for your highest good. And so part of why I'm obsessed with intuition and really learning how to tune into that and spiritual connection is because I do believe my higher self, your higher self, is always 100%, 24/7 there to guide you to take the next right step to whatever is in your highest good, i.e. your Youest You, your authenticity, your most authentic self. And so, the question is, are we listening? Are we in alignment? Are we in tune? Are we hearing that message or feeling it or seeing it or sensing it? And if not, it's okay. It's okay. We can just pause, become aware, not judge, and get back into that frequency, that radio station of Youest You. And your Youest You station is going to be a little different than mine. So spiritual connection, that spiritual power, to me, is something that is a birthright. That is for you, that's for me, that's for all of us. And when we're in that balance, that harmony of the feminine and the masculine energies of receiving and giving, then they become like the ocean, the in and the out, the ebb and the flow, and we become in flow with divine mind. And so I want to talk first a little bit about channeling. I really believe that we're all channeling. We're all connecting in. It's the question to ask yourself is, what am I connecting with? Am I connecting in with fear, with doubt? Am I connecting in with worry? Am I connecting in with hopefulness, with peace, with love? So the more that you practice immersing yourself, remembering, being in this place of feeling connected to something greater. You might call that God or Jesus or Buddha, or you might bring in the angels, whatever you, Shekinah, like whatever you're bringing in, right? Maybe call it God, whatever you call it. That connecting in, that connecting to your authentic heart self. Sometimes I call that, my inner being, that God force self that's in me. I think of my higher self is kind of the overarching oversoul that's seeing everything and guiding me, and that is right there with my team of light and with the divine. And so whatever works for you, the thing to really get is, and this is just my belief, but when we talk about channeling, right, those that are really channeling at a deep level, and some of the well-known channelers like Esther Hicks, what do they talk about? They talk about quieting the mind. They talk about getting quiet, using meditation, breathing techniques, quieting so that we can disappear the chatter, our ego. Our ego is here to protect us. I am not about, massacring your ego. That is not what I'm about. However, the ego, the left side of your brain, and Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, who is a dear friend and has been on this podcast, goes into this in depth in the whole brain living. Your left side of your brain, character 1 and 2, for those of you who listen to either of those conversations, it's just not going to connect into the greater divine mind the way your right brain does, the way your heart does, the way that greater part of you. So those that have the gift and have worked on learning how to channel that higher consciousness, many of them have spent time and energy quieting their mind. So one thing to suggest to you, and this is something that I actually in my coaching program, which I do believe is a spiritual life coaching program, the work of coaching, and I'll talk about why it's so connected to spirituality and healing. It changed my life. What it really did was, my friend, it helped me to connect to my higher self. It can help me to connect in. And when I started to do that, and as I practice that, it does allow me to channel a higher consciousness. It does. And I can feel the difference when I do those practices. So I always say, and we talk about this in my program as well, you really want to make sure you find a practice, something that you're doing every day. I would suggest in the morning because it just starts your energy. So that could be breathing, with intention. It could be reciting a prayer. It could be hand on heart, saying affirmations that you feel in your body. It could be imagining yourself engulfed by light. It could be doing your self-Reiki practice, journaling. For me, what I've been doing recently is I start out with my Reiki practice, my self-Reiki. I always end with my hand on my heart. I have daily readings that I do that are really high vibrational and just make me feel so connected. I have a prayer that I say every morning that just reminds me to get out of my own way, to allow this greater God force to come in and guide me in my business, in my life, as a parent, as a wife, as a human being, as a sister, all of it. So I like to recite those prayers, and then I love to imagine the divine as a beautiful beacon of light and just in me and immersing me. And then I do a tiny bit of journaling, just a little bit of journaling. I have a journal that is just reflecting on the readings, and I do a gratitude journal, just a couple lines. And that's typically in the morning. That's what I like to do. And then before I go to bed, I do usually a forgiveness practice. I like to do yoga nidra, which is just basically laying down supine and really connecting in with my body and physicality and embodiment. And sometimes I have a prayer that I read as well, that I call the beloved, and I just connect into the beloved. So those are some of the things that really work for me. I change it up sometimes, but I really would encourage you, if you would like to channel, if you would like to hear your inner teacher, your intuition, you've got to quiet the mind your mind. You've got to, it's just the way it works. It's about plugging yourself back into the greater divine mind. It's like, if you try to vacuum, I've heard this before, and you're not plugged, you didn't plug in the vacuum, it's not going to work. So we want to think about plugging yourself in. So the thing about spirituality and why I believe it's changed my life, and why I'm imagining you're here, and this might be, you might be attracted to this work, is I really feel and believe that we all come in here to this lifetime to learn lessons, to grow, to evolve our soul, who we are. I personally feel that there is an infinite, our souls are infinite and continue on life to life, and that we're constantly like in this beautiful classroom. And so for me, when I started really grasping at this concept, not from religion is great for many. For me, I wanted something even more macro. And I just started to connect into what are those energies of infinite intelligence, of the divine matrix, as Greg Braden calls it, who's been on here too. What what is that a common ingredient, right? Well, to me it's you can think of God as good orderly direction, right? It's that loving force. And I like to think of it as a loving intelligence that just is abundant and infinite good. And what I started to notice during one of the hardest times in my life, and this was right as I had two young kids. I was separating from my then husband, really challenging to just listen into my intuition and just feel it was very hard, challenging, sad. It was a tough time. Felt very in the dark. Yet one of the things that helped me was connecting into this greater sense of light and trusting that my former husband has his higher self. I do, my children do, we all do. We all do. This is before the Youest You podcast or even my business was born. But what helped me is I worked with therapists and I worked with counselors and 12-step programs. But it was actually a coach I worked with that really had me start to see, uncover, and excavate my higher self. And I realized as I started to feel her and connect in and love all of me, right? Like learn to forgive these aspects of myself, the parts of me that I was ashamed of, embarrassed of, didn't like, start to love that part of me. I started to feel more and more connected. And this is something for you to really to think about and to sit with is what are ways to love yourself more, to love yourself and forgive yourself in any area of life. Maybe there are things you've done that you don't feel so great about. The power of spiritual connection is, in my humble opinion, we are connecting into a source of goodness, of love that never judges, is all loving. And so can you emulate that? That for me, learning to emulate that energy and to love myself at that level was life-changing. It was healing. I found myself all of a sudden with new ideas. One of them was to go back and get my master's degree. Like it made no sense. I was a single mom at that point. I was working full time. And I went back and got my master's degree in health and wellness coaching that had a integrative, holistic focus, a mind, body, science perspective. And it was life-changing. It's actually where I learned about and studied the Dr. Masaru Emoto study. So if you haven't heard of that, look it up. Dr. Emoto, he wrote the book Hidden Messages of Water. This is the very famous study that really shows the power of your words and consciousness on the molecular structure of water. He conducted study after study. And I'll share with you an experiment I was part of that was so cool. This is something I learned in my master's degree in coaching and also just practice myself. But what we say to ourselves. Are we talking to ourselves the way the divine sees us? Or are we talking to ourselves in a way maybe that's just not very nice, that's kind of shitty? What Dr. Emoto noticed after doing many studies, he looked at water molecular structures under the microscope. He had water that he sang to, that he praised, that he said loving kindness thoughts and words to. And then he had water samples that he yelled at, screamed at, called negative names. He froze them and then looked at them under the microscope, and it was astounding. The water that he yelled at looks like daggers. The water that he praised looks like snowflakes, and it's really it's daunting to see. So one of the experiments that we got to do, oh my God, I'm forgetting my professor's name, but it was it was fabulous and powerful. This was like midway, I think beginning of year 2, we were looking at the power of the words that you speak and use and this whole study, and she wanted to make it She wanted to make it experiential. So she told us when we came back from lunch that she was going to be doing a study with us, and we would learn what it was. So we came back from lunch. I was like, okay, what's it going to be? So she had plates of two different peppers, red and orange. So she said, okay, here's two plates of peppers. They were cut up. She passed them around. She's like, here's the plate A. Notice how it tastes, and notice plate B. And so literally everyone in the room was like, oh, that's interesting. Plate B is sweeter. I wonder why. Like, literally, I remember this. It was much sweeter than plate A. And she said, what do you think is the difference? Is it organic? Is it grown hydroponically? Is it locally grown? Like, we just started throwing out all these ideas. And she's like, nope, 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 none of those. Well, it turns out during the lunchtime, she had cut up the peppers beforehand. And during lunch, she ran this study where she screamed and used profanity with one plate of cut up peppers. And she was like doting and loving and so encouraging and kind to the other plate of peppers. And she had them in two separate rooms. And when we came back, she gave us those peppers, didn't tell us what the study was, but all of us unanimously tasted this plate B was sweeter. That was the plate that she was kind and loving to. So I'm sharing this, my friend, because the words that you speak to yourself really matter. And let's not forget that like 70%, 80%, I believe, of our makeup is water. So going back to that Dr. Emoto study. So the thing to get about this is, and this is why I actually really feel there's a deep, deep connection between spirituality and the art of coaching. Because what do you do as a coach? Well, I know for me, what I resonated with and why I went back and got my degree, and I've been teaching this for years and years and do this work, and I know many of you might be doing this too, is you're helping your clients to connect to the most authentic, genuine, beautiful aspect of themselves. They're the Youest You, their higher self. Here's the coolest thing though, as you learn how to do that with others, you by default learn how to do that with yourself. And that is a game changer. And what I had found, just like that study, is what you're learning to do, what I learned to do, what I'd had someone do with me first, coaching me, was they saw my higher self, right? He saw my higher self. He saw my best, and he pulled that out. And I started saying different kinds of things to myself, and I started feeling healthier. I didn't even mean to release weight, but I did, because I think I was releasing not just weight on my body, but weight that was energetic. And then I was like, what is this? What is going on? And I remember I became part of the Centers for Spiritual Living, which is a beautiful communal opportunity to connect at the community level all over the world with this new thought work, really around law of attraction, manifestation, again, not religious, but really spiritual. And I started to notice a change in myself. And I thought, okay, if that can happen with me, how can I do this with others? And so the thing with spirituality, connecting in to source energy, is learning to do that with yourself. The next step, the next iteration of that is, and this is something maybe you've thought about, maybe you haven't, but I know for me and many of us out there, all right, how do we now do that with others? How do I help you to uncover, discover, and to be your Youest You, to feel into, to see and to hear and to sense your higher self? And that is the spiritual work of life coaching. It really is. If you are trained appropriately and trained learning how to do this, that is what I teach. I have a whole sacred coach approach. The methodology I teach is all about really how to see this in others. And I'll tell you something, I really believe at the core of this, that so much healing can happen within ourselves and this planet when we learn how to see others' higher self, when we learn to say, you know, someone's acting up or angry on the road, or even if you're not coaching them, and just having that deeper awareness and spiritual connection to humanity, and that we're all related and connected, to say, I wonder what's hurting that person, right? Using one of the biggest competencies is curiosity and powerful questions, and to say, you know, I wonder what happened to that person. I wonder why she is acting that way. I'm going to give her grace. I'm going to grant forgiveness because I know I've been in tough spots and I don't really know what's going on. So that those competencies, those skills that you learn as a coach, especially the way I teach it, these are the deep skills that I believe are part of living a spiritually connected life, right? Like how to see the best in others, how to see the best in yourself, how to ask deeper questions that get into new parts of your mind and your brain and your heart, that open up new possibilities. Coaching is all about opening up to infinite and to possibilities and opportunities. And frankly, what I really think of it as a healing sacred work where you are tuning into that person's greatest gifts, desires, dreams, and their higher self's wishes, right? And so that is sacred healing work. It's one of the reasons I'm obsessed with this work. It's one of the reasons I started a coaching program, my Life Designer Coach Academy, and why I kind of came out of the spiritual closet a little bit and realized, oh my God, it's a spiritual program. Now, I grew up, in the right near Harvard with a lot of intellectual people. And for a long time, it's been, a challenge for me to say, like, I'm spiritual and that's the essence of me. It doesn't mean that I let go of my left brain. Still have it. I was just talking to an amazing woman who I think is going to be doing this coaching program, and we were talking about this, like really how to be spiritual and how not to, how to also still have your left brain going, how to have a balance, right, of those feminine and masculine energies. And masculine can be spiritual just as feminine can. But I'm talking about the energy of receiving and being in the flow and receptivity and channeling, and also taking action that's inspired and that feels like it's in alignment spiritually. So that, for me, having that power of spirituality brought into my life, and then learning how to not just do that for myself but for others, that has looked like what I do now with coaching and frankly this podcast. When this idea came to me, it was just this like ongoing inner kind of voice that was like, oh, don't you want to share what you're learning with the world? Like, this is helping you to change your life. People can take what they want. They can let go of what doesn't resonate. That's not my concern, but let me share what I'm learning. Let's connect in on a deeper level. So if that word, or woo woo, which I don't love woo woo, I think it mitigates spirituality. I still use it sometimes, and I'm like, Julie, stop, because this has validity, And if you've listened to my interview with Dr. Roland McCready, the head scientist at HeartMath Institute, or Dr. Debbie Rosman, the CEO, co-CEO of HeartMath, there is so much science behind spiritual connection with the field, with our heart intelligence, with the electromagnetic field around your heart. If you've heard my interview with Greg Braden, actually I have a couple of interviews with him, we talk about the divine matrix. We talk about this grid, this field of infinite loving intelligence. So my friend, I guess what I'm sharing is, whether or not you decide to become a coach, I do see that as a healing path. And I think what I've seen with many of the students who've come through my program, even when they weren't sure they wanted to be a coach, but they wanted that spiritually in-depth personal development program, whether or not you do that or not, my invitation to you is, it's worth it to invest time and energy to connect in to your heart, to your inner teacher, to your intuition, to your greater spiritual connection, whatever that looks like, and whatever language and whatever prayer or offering or intention, whatever that might be. I know for some it might be through yogic practice, right? Like it can be any way you want, because the divine is infinite and we're all unique expressions of the divine. My invitation, though, is to allow yourself to really explore, and maybe you'll join me out of this spiritual closet and start sharing more of your miracles and your stories. I read a book recently by Carolyn Mace, who I'm trying to get on this show. She's amazing. She wrote Spiritual Madness. And, she talks about miracles, and she says, why do we think that they're so special? Meaning they are special, but why don't we realize that's like the divine's child play? Like miracles, which you can think about as a shift in perspective, a change in view, or synchronicities. That is something that we should be assuming. We want to remind ourselves that the divine is goodness, good force, God force. So I love that reminder. I love that reminder. And of course, one of the ways to access the divine is through imagination. That there's that beautiful quote by Einstein that, that imagination is really the preview of your life, that tapping in, that's even more important than anything else, is having daydreaming, imagining, going into how do you want to feel? How do you want life to show up? Remember, you get one shot being here as your Youest You. It is something like 1 in 400 zillion trillion chances of being you. And I just remind you, if any of this resonates, to just tune into how might you treat yourself like the divine, spiritually connected, radiant light, beautiful soul, Youest You being that you are. How might you do that more today? And if you would like help in how to do this with yourself and with others, to help others really connect to their higher self and to do the same with you, that is what I teach. That is what I teach in my program, my Life Designer Coach Academy. That's what I do. And we are starting our next cohort, and we'd love to have you if you're interested. There are limited seats, so if you're interested, I will have the link in the show notes as well. You can also just go to juliereisler.com/certification or send me an email if you want to talk about it. I'm here. I want to make sure it's the right fit, but I can tell you, my friend, it is a spiritual life coach program that has incredible tools and practices and frameworks and all of the things from a mind-body science perspective, from positive psychology, from the healing arts, from heart intelligence, and yes, from spirituality or spiritual principles as well. And it will really help you to connect into your highest self and help others to do the same. And if that speaks to you, I'd be honored to welcome you in to this next cohort. It is one of my biggest blessings to lead this program. We have graduates from all over the world, from Saudi Arabia to Budapest to France, all over England, and Canada and the States and the UK and Australia and Grenada. And I know I'm forgetting a few, but would love to have you if that speaks to you. And either way, I just hope that this conversation with you and me, you and me together today in this solo-sode, I hope that you really found something here that can help you remember who you are and that can remind you of the spiritual power within you to be your best self, your highest self, that higher self that is you, that is infinite, is always here, always guiding you. And may you have the courage, to follow that. So, all right, I'm going to pull one more card because I just can't stop, and I feel guided to do one more card. Let's see what we get. I'm just going to shuffle these. Let's see, my friend. This is the one. Okay, this one just jumped to the top. Oh, I love it. Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. So I'm going to end on this note. The card that I chose, and I'll show it if you're watching, is oneness. How perfect is that? That's what we're talking about. We're all connected. Here's the intention. And maybe if you want with me, just take a moment to close your eyes. If you're driving, don't do that, please. If you're not driving and it's safe, please do that. You can put your hand on your heart. I'm going to read this to you, and I just invite you to feel into this beautiful connectedness to our oneness. I am created from the highest frequency of love, and I am connected to all forms of life through this concept of a power greater than myself. Some call this God, goddess, higher power, infinite intelligence, source, divine universe, Mother Earth. I celebrate my oneness with all that is, and I honor that we are all created out of love. That is exactly what we've been talking about. So I love the synchronicity and the alignment. Okay, here are the questions to ask your Youest You. Has there been a time that I felt connected to something greater than myself and or a sense of oneness with all that is? How can I show love to someone I don't know today? How might the concept of oneness serve my highest self and others today? And what can I do to radiate oneness? So my friend, we had the first intention was courage, which I had talked about. And of course, in tapping into the power of spirituality is really about tapping into that whole power of oneness. That's really the truth of it. So thank you to my team of light, to my higher self. I feel like you're all guiding me. Thank you to each of you for being your beautiful Youest You, for being here with me. I love you. I'm honored to be on this journey with you. And I just, I pray and intend that you really start to see yourself and up it a notch, even as the divine creation that you are connected to the cosmic intelligence of love, that is you, and to start treating yourself that way, and hopefully to treat all of us that way, and that we step into that courage to be our best self and that oneness that makes us all connected in the greater cosmic family. From my heart to yours, namaste, beautiful soul. I love and honor and see the greatest light in you. That in me knows that in you. Mwah.